of people like Deborah Birx, who in my view is actually quite saying that the death numbers are inflated. Let's say I get COVID tomorrow and I die in 2 weeks' time. It's because I was so what's the problem?
Nothing. Go on.
79 years old and I would have died anyway. So they question the death rates. And then there are people who do all sorts of complex statistical analysis. This is a guy who's written books on every aspect of it. He's a Washington Post reporter, or he was a Washington Post reporter. And he does statistical analysis challenging every aspect. He's written 5 books on masks, on school closures, and the whole works. So they have a kind of rational basis for what we think are crazy ideas. Now, this is why I say the problem is mainly American, quite apart from the distribution, in that many of the main people, especially Joseph Mercola, Robert Kennedy, are all American and have huge following and huge backing in America. Facebook, these people constitute 73% of the anti-vax information on Facebook. The platforms have only removed, the platforms make a big thing. I don't know whether you saw the documentary called The Cleaners, which just came out claiming what a hard job they're doing, remove it. In fact, 95% stays on, and if they take it off, they just come in under another name. Secondly, more important is the algorithms that feed people into fake news. And finally, these people have a gigantic reach. So this is what I meant by influence. Now a small group, like in Nazi Germany, can dominate and control the large group, which continues not to be aware of the nature and power of these systems. Now, there is a question how much there is actual collusion between Mark Zuckerberg. I'm inclined to think that there is, and I believe the meeting between Trump and Zuckerberg that was reported to have happened before the previous election. So they're fully aware of it, and they're fully aware, for example, there's another study showing suicide rates going up with parallel with iPhone sales, the role that social media is playing in teen suicides. They're aware of all this, but they're making too much money to care. And this comes from a long tradition in American politics. The oil companies have run misinformation on global warming for enormous profit. And in a way, thousands dying doesn't really matter. I mean, they fought enough wars in the Middle East where millions died. So the argument that you're killing your own people, as long as you're making profit, is not really work with these groups of people. Now, this is a talk which Maruf better give, that there are different artificial intelligence mechanisms which amplify and send these out. We had in England Brexit, and a whole lot of Americans, the Koch brothers poured money into it. Steve Bannon came here and advised a company called Cambridge Analytica. They set up the Brexit referendum like Trump saying it'll never happen. The British voters won't vote. But because of the kind of systems that Cambridge Analytica released, that the AI systems, the British public were manipulated and information was controlled, and we got Brexit and you got Trump. So shall we say democracy doesn't have a defense against these systems which are very successful in mass media manipulation and affecting the voter aspirations of people. I won't spend time on this. Now, they also use other tactics. Now, this is at a school board meeting.
Coming. We made a suddenly surprise visit.
Right, just listen to this. I'm listening to something important.
Okay. Okay.
Come and sit and listen.
Yeah.
Okay, Sabrini, okay, now most of you are going to sit there saying this is stupid. I want you to, I don't know whether you heard the applause behind it. First of all, the man is raising emotion. He's very good at it. Second, he's getting a lot of affirmation from the crowd behind him. And whilst the democratic forces dismiss this as being stupid and silly and laugh in a very superior way, the reality is that these things are highly effective, and people are being removed from boards. Doctors who give recommendations are being threatened and losing their jobs on a large scale. This is not just happening on a small scale. So on one hand, we have people laughing and saying, ha ha, how stupid. On the other hand, we are having real world effects in the real world of power. Okay, so which comes to a question, what's the psychology behind it? First of all, you need a consistent message. So if it fits in with your belief system, you're more likely to believe it. Secondly, is the message coherent? And this is where we fail. We tend to present complex information in a complex way. They just boil it down to a few simple issues that they keep repeating. That was Goebbels' message, which we have not received. We tend to think we have to deal in complexity because we are intellectually superior to these idiots, but in fact, the idiots are winning the game. Thirdly, credibility of the source. Now, Trump, in running those meetings, which we all thought was a joke, taking over the news conferences, you must remember they got huge coverage and they fundamentally influenced attitudes. And then finally, general acceptability of those around you, family, friends, and your social networks, especially the Facebook groups, have an enormous influence. That's something we have missed out on. They are very good at organizing Stop the Steal and other ban the ban groups. They're very good at setting up group situations, and the internet lends itself to the use of these mechanisms of exploitation. And that's what's called normative pressures. People spread misinformation in order to gain social affirmation and acceptance. And so they create identities and networks.
It's okay, go on.
Okay, so there are several studies on this. I'm just going to take you through some of the research. I don't think they're helpful because they don't look at the political dimension, which to me is the most dominant influence, that the fact the agencies of government are forcing this. So in psychology, we know that certain personality traits, that the people who are neurotic and want to be locus of control refers to being in charge, and people who react quickly and emotionally, and that's what they want. These tweets are aimed at getting quick emotional reactions. Vaccine resistance has been related with conspiratorial beliefs. They've been building up ideas about conspiracies. Religion is fairly important, as we've seen with the Hasidic groups in Jerusalem. Creating mistrust in authority and members of society is a campaign they've been running fairly systematically. So undermining belief in authority is a very important tactic being used. And finally, political affiliation. Your belief systems are very important, how you function. So our brain doesn't quickly process information. We have very emotional responses. And if you look at their methods of communication, as in the guy they showed you, they appeal to emotion. Secondly, the background applause from that guy from the school board meeting I showed you is getting it. So showing background backup is extremely important. And finally, and this is the issue that I think can only be dealt with by addressing what these companies are up to, is the artificial intelligence systems, the algorithms that they develop for enormous profit. The growth of political bias in medical issues is now a big issue. And this is a big important thing in the US, identity bias. That if you say certain things about freedom and identity, and I'm in charge of my life, and the lone man standing up against big corporations, you will get automatic beliefs. And this is something they very cleverly play on. So there was a study, it was looking at vaccine resistance in Ireland and the United Kingdom. I won't take you through the study, but the associations with is what I was showing you, that people who are vaccine resistant, can you get me some water here? Have low levels of trust in professionals, and that is being actively encouraged in these systems. They have high levels of paranoia and religious beliefs. You can see that in the fundamentalist groups of many religions. They have higher levels of social dominance and traits of personality traits, lower levels of, so the more aggressive, the less conscientious feed into these groups, and higher levels of internal focus control. That means people who believe that they are in charge of their lives and nobody has got to tell us what to do. And finally, more negative attitudes towards immigrants. I don't know if you've seen the studies showing how big a factor race was both in the 2016 and 2020 elections. So it feeds into the pro-Brexit mania, into the challenge authority. Now, this is a very important finding, which you probably already know, that the people who favor vaccines get their news from newspapers, television, and radio. And by television, we're talking about things like CNN, MSNBC. Whereas the people who are vaccine resistant, those are the blue ones, the ones who are willing to accept the vaccine. The ones who don't want the vaccine, the ones who are gray, get their news from the internet. And that is the big shift in information now. People don't watch traditional newspapers or radio. They get their information from Facebook and social media. One important fact I'd like you to remember for later is that the vaccine-resistant people do listen to their family and friends. The thing that this statistic shows me is that if you can't get at the person, try and get at the family, and through them, deal with it as a family system. And they're more likely for a personalized doctor approach versus an authoritarian approach. So this is the study, population study on the US and Ireland. So their conclusion was those who consume legacy media are more likely, that means CNN, BBC, Guardian, are more likely to accept the vaccine than those who get their news from the internet, which is where about 60% of Americans are getting their news. It's not the intensity of use, but the type of use that matters. So intensity is not a factor, it's the type. All right, this is a second study, a double-blind control study, and it's interesting. I had an argument in 2016 about how the internet was influenced with the American, how the internet was influencing the election voting tendencies in America. And he said to me, nobody listens to Facebook. Are you crazy? That's for kids. Now, this is a study. They took 4,000 Americans and 4,000 British. They split it into two groups. One group was given 5 minutes of fake information, and the other group was given real information. They did the same thing in America. They then presented them with 5 minutes of fake information. The other group got real information. I'll go into this slide, but this is an example of the fake news. And then before they presented the news, they asked them, would you take the vaccine if it was available? They showed them the fake news under control with the control group, and then asked them the same question again. And the group that was given the 5 minutes of fake news had a 6.2% fall in their willingness to take the vaccine. What's important from this study is that very small doses of fake news are extremely effective. So misinformation has been shown to spread faster than factually correct information. And even after a brief exposure of misinformation can result in long-term attitudinal and behavioral effects. What this study is showing is how little you have to do to convince people to achieve the effect you want if you're a maleficent actor. Once people get the misinformation, it is difficult to change these beliefs. And if you attempt to correct it, you may actually perpetuate it. I'll try and deal with this a little later. But what I want to show you is how important social media is in affecting the minds of people in the direction you want, provided you play it correctly. I think I've already shown you this side. So this is a population study of people and their vulnerability to fake news. Now it comes up with some interesting, this is on vaccination. People of ethnicity and low income groups are actually more robust towards misinformation. So the group that's vulnerable is the educated white population, or the more educated population than working class groups. So failures in ethnic minorities are probably, or vaccination rates are probably due to availability because they can't get the time off for work. Religion, the Jewish families, because of their larger grouping structures, such as in Israel, have actually had very good rates. This is important. Women are more likely to be amenable to fake news about vaccines than men. And there's some very clever targeting of women by the anti-vax group, issues about fertility and about babies. So that's some of the information that's come out of these studies. Now, what's interesting is that the misinformation, the medical misinformation is manufactured by a small group of people. And the largest merchant in this is Dr. Joseph Mercola. This is a book you should read. It's a very important book. It's a very cleverly written book. And if you think your opponents are stupid, you should read this book. I'm happy to send it to you if you want to read it. So what are we going to do about this? Well, they tell you what to do. Study your opponent, study people like Mercola, see how they do it. So this is a pastor in a church saying, stir up your school board meeting for the glory of God. Run for office, do something. Make Facebook videos until they deplatform you. So they have a working plan. We do not. We're still putting out big information on traditional media, which is not seen by our target group, and not really addressing the kind of algorithms that are being played around for great profit by the companies. Now, if you're going to deal with somebody who has misinformation, my experience, there are 4 groups. There are people, Maruf, do you mind me talking about your daughter?
No.
Okay, I mean, luckily we got a very good sample at our last meeting. There is a medical misinformation group who argue about vaccines and efficacy and risk. There's a political group. These people see it as, I will shortly show you a slide. Maru's daughter falls into the holistic group, the healthy immune system, the Bilma group, who say all you need is healthy living and your body has an immune system and take vitamin C and zinc and boost your system up. And that's the holistic group. Now, inside this group are also yoga practitioners, meditators, and they form strong links with the QAnon supporters. So a lot of QAnon supporters and the holistic medicine group have joined up against what they see as big misses. And finally, there's the conspiracy group. These are the 5G network people, the people who say vaccines put chips in your brain. Now, my theory is don't engage the political and the conspiracy groups. The tactics for them are different and do not address them at an individual level. Your rational approach will fail. And if anything, you will make them even stronger in their beliefs. So the only two groups that can be potentially addressed, but if you're going to address these groups, you're really going to sit and read, take the 30-hour educational course that they offer, read Mercola, read the top people in them. You need to understand your enemy before you do battle with them. And that's something we feel too superior. We think we have the knowledge, we are scientists, we are better, and that by presenting evidence, we will win. You're losing, okay? The death rates in America are leading the world. Okay, now this gives you an idea of the main classes. I have an immune system, no vaccine. This is the holistic group. My body, my choice is a very important argument. It appeals to the American streak of individualism and freedom. And finally, there is the inoculation against. Now, we have created two worlds now. We have the we no longer agree on a common basis of fact. So that debate is really two people in two different languages arguing with each other. So it's a meaningless debate. And this poster puts up some of the classes of misinformation and the types of people you will encounter. Now, this is from June 20th onwards. Fox News changed its presentation on the vaccine, went from being how quickly can we get it to it being about control and power. So this is the political group saying, big government is coming for you and you are fighting big government. The other is that, and this is Laura Ingraham, and Robert Kennedy is he runs one of the big centers on autism. He's done a lot of good work on contamination. He extends it through mercury and into vaccines. He's one of the big followers on the Wakefield hoax. So these are politically manipulated information systems, and they form a web of information that I find people who seem to be battling this don't even address or study. You really need to go into it. Now, one of the things that has been found is that giving people information, as people do, actually increases the misperception. This is not on everybody, but on a lot of people. One trick I can give you is that don't appeal to the intellect. Aristotle said there are three parts to it. We tend to go for the logic part. If you look at their tweets and the way they manage it, it is always emotional. There's something, that big pharma or big government is coming for you, fight them off. Secondly, make it part of a narrative. Storytelling, the brain, if you want to get from that immediate effect, storytelling is a fundamental part of the brain. I'm going to give you an example. I hope it comes up. Can you all see this? Can you see this website? Somebody say yes. Are you seeing the New England Journal?
Bottom of
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's there,
Now-
yes.
Right. Now, this website shows it in terms of the historical use of masks from the 1918, going back to the plague. It makes a story about it. It argues like people have used it to stop infection in hospitals and to prevent influenza. There have always been conflicts about it. It acknowledges the conflicts. It then says we've now done research, and then goes on to acknowledge the problems engendered by it. So I think that you need to create a narrative. They create narratives about big pharma, about 5G, about the Democrats forcing, big government forcing themselves on people. You need to put your information into a narrative and create narrative. The third tactic that I have used, and this is a very effective tactic, is that you're not taking it for yourself. So I would have said to Maru's daughter, this is not for you, this is for your family. And this is very interesting. This guy wrote an article saying that he took the vaccine. You must remember in the meditation, yoga, healthy living group, vaccines are an intrusion into your body, a poison in your body, quite apart from the mercury that Kennedy pushes. And he wrote this article, and there was a gigantic backlash. This is what they do. They use the internet to threaten and force people. But this appealing to altruism. And this is a good index. I think one of the reasons New Zealand did well is that they had a better sense of their social identity, whereas America has spent a lot of its time on polarization, and we play into the polarization. And the third factor, I think, is they make extensive use of deaths. This was American doctor who died 2 weeks after being given the vaccine. Within 2 days of his death, 5 million interactions on Twitter. They make big news of deaths. And I think there's been an inadequate use of the victims of this plague of misinformation. And they really, there needs to be better organization around it. So they are much cleverer at promoting these fears than we are. So I think it's very important that if you care about these matters, that you get involved in social media, that because those algorithms depend on clicks, so not on facts, but on clicks, and creating what is called social homophily. So that's going to be an important part of the response. And finally, I'm going to leave you with a bit of hope. I need to introduce this. There was a guy called Andrew Wakefield who started all this. He is the father of this generation. There's always been vaccine conspiracies. But this guy, Andrew Wakefield, used his position and the stupid editors at the Lancet to promote this article claiming that vaccines caused autism. It was fake from the very beginning. And people ask me when I've given this lecture elsewhere, I was asked the question, what is the one thing you would do? And there's a 1.5 hour video on YouTube. It's silly, it's stupid, but it tells you the story. And it's a horrific story from which a lot of this modern myth about vaccines come from. I'm going to play you the end. The doctor in question is Andrew Wakefield, the father of vaccine hoaxes. And there is a reporter who reported him, who did the investigative journalist and expert. It wasn't doctors who investigated, who exposed him. It was journalists, and it took a whole 8 years for the Lancet editorial to actually do something about it. So I'm going to leave you with the possibility of hope by playing a clip from that YouTube video.
The movement he started is still based almost completely on his lies is pretty important to point out. And in fact, it's useful to point it out because despite how it might look, the truth can be a powerful thing. Once Wakefield got chased out to America and had his medical license taken away, vaccination rates in the UK recovered. I love this because you can basically see the effects of Brian Deer's reporting on a graph. Like the scare starts and it gets worse and worse and worse. And then Brian Deer's reporting comes out and bam, it's on its way back up. Like the truth does make a difference. And then when Wakefield's license was taken away, we went right back up to pre-scare levels. Of course, getting chased out to America meant he started peddling his lies in America. So sorry about that, but it does seem pretty clear that the truth helps people make up their minds about this stuff. Fascinatingly, a lot of Britain seems to remember the MMR scare and the revelation that it was based on lies and learned a lesson about vaccine alarmism. According to polls of global willingness to take the COVID-19 vaccine, other countries start relatively low, perhaps dimly remembering some people saying vaccines are bad, then acceptance grows as it becomes increasingly clear the new vaccines are safe. Wait, where's the UK? Well, boys, we're just chilling up here. We've been through this before, you see. That's my British accent. It seems like our past experience with bullshit vaccine scares has inoculated us against future ones.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Lawrence. That was brilliant. I mean, you put a lot of very, very interesting information together, pertinent, and I thank you. It is wonderful. Before we go on to questions and discussions, and I have a whole bunch of comments and questions, I just want to ask you two things. Number one, will the slide and the discussion be available on the or somewhere where if I want to show it to some people, I can show these? Lawrence, you have any objection to that? Or
No. I mean, in fact, I can supply you with all these materials. I have large collections of stuff which I collect.
I would also like your voice explanations also, because the material by sir, it's for me, I deal with this on a daily basis, on a one-on-one basis. Yeah.
I think it's available on the YouTube live, but only first 10 minutes I missed it. That's why I quickly recorded it. So I put it on live on YouTube. If you put SLIMO1966FAMILY, www space space Y2 space 03, you will get this.
Okay, yeah, you got to send it to us. And the other thing is, I like to have a copy of Mercola's book. Is it a PDF format?
Yeah, it's a PDF. But more important, you watch that YouTube on Andrew Wakefield. It'll give you an understanding, because that is the only study ever that everybody quotes, from Bill Maher to everybody else.
Yeah, no, I've heard about that study previously too. But
there's a lot of information around it which people don't know. In fact, if anybody knows the information that's in that 1.5 hours, I'd be interested to know, because I don't know any doctor who knows the whole story. It's 1.5 hours. The man does silly things, but the amount of information he presents is really a lesson to us doctors about the inadequacy of our system. So I'll get Maruf to send the link around. It's a must-watch video. It's an hour and a half, but you will learn a lot about what's wrong with our medical system and how we can be exploited.
So one other question before I let the others talk. You said they, and of course, there was a political motive with Trump, who, as you point out, had very much like the Nazis' techniques. What is the political motive of many others? Some are victims who have got caught to this. But who are they? When you say they, I know Mercola makes money, but what is behind this? What is the phenomenon behind all this?
The undermining of authority. I mean, the US is in what I see as a system of breaking down authority structures, losing trust in people and losing identity. Because once you have a divided opposition, small groups. That's what the Nazis did. The communists were fighting the liberals were fighting, the Marxists were fighting the Leninists. So shall we say the Nazi groups, the right-wing groups, by being united, if you look, Biden can't get his people to vote for his plans, whereas Trump got his tax cuts through unanimously. So small, well-organized groups can take reins of power government, like Brexit. And so the process is to gain control of government and to be supportive of business, to deregulate, liberalize, low tax, which profits the 1%. So it's about gaining control of governmental institutions, mainly of business. And huge amounts of money are being poured into this. These anti-vax movements are extremely well funded, well researched. The materials they produce are high quality. Somebody is funding them.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Arunian, I have a quick question for Lawrence. Lawrence, thanks a lot. This Banda here. You mentioned Big Pharma. I just want to ask you, what action have the vaccine manufacturers taken to counteract these anti-vaxxers' arguments?
Well, they put out data. You see, this is the problem. We're having two different arguments. One lot has sort of like scientific case discussions, which the general public are completely baffled by.
Yeah, they can't understand.
The other lot put out very simplistic solutions and point to the enormous money that, and these companies have made large money. And in the US, I mean, the whole drug pricing situation is crazy. They do make crazy amount of profits. So shall we say they're still fighting it at the level of putting out data and doing studies and presenting complex chi-squared tests, which have no meaning, and they're not really battling it off.
Yeah, and one other comment I have is, the Pacific Islands, we are living close to the Pacific Islands. They are by and large very religious. And as some of you would have heard, Fiji has some of the highest rates of COVID and some of the highest death rates. And they are not very good at taking the vaccine because the churches have influenced them in a remarkable way. So in some of those islands, the religion has played a key role in people not getting the vaccine. That's very unfortunate.
Yeah, fundamentalist groups. I mean, in Israel, most of the people on ventilators were Hasidic Jews, the ultra Hasidic Jews. So yes, strong religion and the idea that religion is a little complicated. One is seen as a punishment from God, and that if you're good, and this happened during the plague as well. And it also happens at subtle levels. For instance, the Catholic Church said you can't use the Janssen vaccine because fetal tissue had been used in it. So shall we say, even at very high intellectual levels, quite apart from fundamentalist religions, the religions have, like the Nazis were backed by Pope Pius VI, religions and Nazism have always gone together. And what happens to people really doesn't matter to religions, as it doesn't to big business.
Thank you.
Yeah, Padman.
Hello, everybody. Lawrence, I am very tickled, and I should say you made a very excellent presentation of the trouble we have in the whole world. I think, I don't want to talk politics at all. I think politicians are super bad, in my judgment, all over the world. All I could say is, if anybody can create a sense of togetherness in humanity, that is the way. All of us except Maruf and Karunian possibly have gone past 80 years. We are all blessed. We are all blessed. But I think what's happening, especially in the part of the world where I am, is very ridiculous, unacceptable, and I am waiting for the Lord's call. That's all, because I have been blessed. I have the best of my life in the western part of the world, 3 years in England and 49 years in a great country called America. Let's hope that democracy prevails. At least we can be here for 3 years and 3 months, because if any other jackasses come, after that, I will go back to Sri Lanka to die. With that, I will say, you all are a bunch of great people to be so knowledgeable, and I am very tickled and pleased that I am part of you all. Thank you very much. Maruf, thanks for organizing this. And Lawrence, I wish you another 15 years at least of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Sam.
Yeah,
Yeah, Sam and Saro.
The
Sam,
question
Sam.
is,
Sam,
actually,
Sam.
the question to Maruf. Maruf, you are one of the youngest in our batch. Are you 79 or 80?
79
That's what I thought.
yesterday.
You're not 80 yet.
You're not experienced. You have only 79 years of experience. Some of us have more experience.
There we go.
All right. Okay. All right. Now, Saro was going to. Saro, Lawrence talked about US. I also want someone at some point to comment on that because we're all living here.
Yeah. Before that, I sort of had a sort of a question, I guess. The anti-vaxxers are not a homogeneous group. And this is addressed mainly to Lawrence, I think. So, because some of them are due to religious reasons, as you explained, some are due to following the QAnon groups, others are for personal reasons of their own health. So it's not a homogeneous group of anti-vaxxers that you can attack with one way of informing them. So sort of a multi-pronged attack is needed here in terms of conveying information or education to each of these groups separately. And how would be the best way, if at all, to accomplish that? Because you can't just send out a general statement saying this is good. They each have their own reasons, each reason is different, and you need to address sort of each one's concerns, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say. I boiled it down to 4 groups to simplify it, but as Banda pointed out, there's also the religious group. So what I'm saying is the political group and the conspiracy group are 2 different groups. You shouldn't approach them individually. You can't get at it. You have to get at their information systems. And I have some theories on how to do it, but they're completely illegal and I'm not willing to speak about it. But basically you have to use the same tactics they're using and you have to get at the same systems that they're using. You have to modify the algorithms, and how you modify the algorithms is a complicated story. I don't know if you heard about the epic hack that happened last week where they hacked the right-wing group and exposed all their members.
I saw that.
I think that's one method of getting at that group, because many of them are hiding. They present one face to the public. So the 2 groups you could approach are people like Maru's daughter, who I think falls into the holistic group. That means to say they believe they have an immune system, and by simple things like garlic and vitamin D and sunlight, you can combat this. Now, there are very good answers to this that you can give, and you need to really analyze what the belief system of the person is. If you listen to what she said, she actually threw out 20 different arguments in the course of the 5 minutes she spoke for. She threw a whole lot of facts. You can trace each one of those back to the deadly dozen, as I call them. So don't get involved in individual bits. Go for their core belief about the immune system and that being sufficient. And basically the main line I would take with say is altruism. What about the threat you pose to your family? That's the line I take. So yes, I completely agree with you. So that's what you can do with the holistic group. With the medical group, I agree information processing is important and the sort of tactics we're currently using. So I'm totally agreed with you that if you have a vaccine denier, you need to know where they're coming from. You need to know what their core beliefs are. And you need to look at what are their biases in information. And then you don't do it through information, you do it through emotion. You look for a relationship. Don't fight with these people. Relate to them, connect with them, agree with, I mean, we should accept the holistic group, that healthy living, immune system. We should say, fine, great, let's work on it together. So join up on the points that you agree with and stop the overextension of the argument. It's a very slow process if you're working with somebody, and don't expect to win. Don't go with an attitude of curiosity. I'm here to learn what you are saying. Let's see where we could meet if possible. So take a neutral, unemotional stance and study their belief system.
Thank you. Thanks.
That's very important.
I also want to say
But
I appreciate your talk very, very much. It was wonderful.
you
Very
put together a lot of issues. I have a couple of questions too, but Benita first. Go ahead, Benita.
So thanks, Lawrence. That was a stunning presentation. Thank you. I just one question. Now we see the countries where the vaccination is going on, 60%, 70%, or reaching 80% in some countries. Now won't that have a positive impact on the anti-vaxxers to see for themselves that people are surviving, the hospitalization is less, the rest of the side effects are less, and there is a positive effect by taking the vaccine. Will that, at the end of it, win over the anti-vaxxers, or is it a lost cause?
Okay, there's quite a lot of data on this. I don't have the slides to hand. Shall we say the rate is going up in the red states, and it is improving, and that's what happened in Britain. That's what's happening in other parts of the world. Seeing what's happening with other people, the real world experience. But such is the power of the control of narrative. Varies, but we know at least 15% will never take the vaccine on the current studies, that they're hardcore, they're locked into their beliefs, and you want. So this is where I think it's important that we look at how those belief systems have been built up and the information systems that feed it and sustain it. So yes, you're right, and they are in fact improving, but there will, and that's going to be a problem because America now has 1/5 of all of the worst variations. It's becoming a repository because that's one of the places where you have a whole lot of political forces actually driving, and money, huge amounts of money driving the anti-vax information. So America is going to be, shall we say, a reservoir for the more deadly variants of the virus. They already have the vast majority of them. So this is what I'm saying. America is harming the world, and the forces of democracy are really not doing very much about it. They don't even realize what the problem is. They're being played off the board.
Yeah, one question. Can anyone give an update on the misinformation and anti-vaccine issue in Sri Lanka? Ranjit, do you have any feel for that?
No, I'm a student of American news. I don't have enough news feeds.
No, but I'm just asking anyone in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, do they know?
I can say something, Karnian. I think Sri Lanka has no problem vaccinating people. Almost everybody wants to have the vaccine, but they're fighting. Everybody is fighting to get either the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine. Some people are refusing the Sinopharm and the Sinovac vaccines, but there is no problem. I'm told almost everybody is keen on getting the vaccine. the fight is for which vaccine. Everybody, people are demonstrating, especially university students, I understand. They have been demonstrating yesterday, asking for the Pfizer vaccine.
So they want a particular brand of vaccine.
Because they cannot travel
How
abroad.
about any misinformation about the illness itself?
Illness itself, I don't know much about it. I don't know much to comment. I don't know whether Ranjit has anything to say.
Because they say that people over 30, they are given 90% full vaccination. But now they are giving the vaccination to the 12 to 20. And these are the people who are covering for the Pfizer. There's only about 20% have taken up the vaccine.
Right.
They think that they will not be able to travel to UK with the Sinopharm or even the Indian AstraZeneca Covishield vaccine.
I think Sri Lanka may be one of the top countries that have the least number of anti-vaxxers, because they are struggling to get the vaccine and they are unable.
Nilani has a question.
I hope this is accurate information. I think Manilka, he comes on TV and he's one of the key members of the COVID group. He had said that the more and more hospital beds are now available because less people are getting admitted after the vaccination, because I know I struggled to get a bed for my own brother, and now there is enough empty beds in all hospitals. At one stage, in the private and in the government sector, one couldn't find a bed. People are having oxygen seated on chairs, drips seated on chairs. What I hear is after the vaccination and the curfew, things seems to be better. Whether this is an accurate reflection of the vaccination, I'm not sure.
That's good news. Very good.
Yeah. No, I think Sri Lanka is a success story as regards the vaccine. That's what I understood from the lecture last month.
Sri Lanka has a good. Sri Lanka has a good reputation for public health. Sri
Lanka has an amazing public health system. Not only compliance, I think the infrastructure for the public health was set up very early. And I think thanks to, the evolution of it was starting with the British concept of public responsibility for private health. Sri Lanka adopted it early, and I think the LSSP folks at the time in the 30s and 40s had an influence on it. And they set up this public health system, which really was a remarkable achievement for a country like Sri Lanka. But whether it is funded and supported currently, I don't know. But
why did Neelika and them, the task force, resign?
Who?
The task force, Neelika and about 3-4 people resigned from the vaccine. This one.
Neelika
they all resigned.
Well, from what?
Yeah, true. I heard that there's trouble at the moment. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the general system, but I don't know about what is happening now. I personally have fundamental difficulty with the military controlling COVID. It just doesn't, it didn't sit well with me. I don't know how effective or not they were, but I didn't know about the resignations. Neelika was excellent.
Neelika is right.
The 4 academics in the group have resigned. 5 of them, yes.
But they say that daily cases, which were more than 2,500 earlier, has come down to 1,332. And the deaths, which were about 200, has now come down to 82 per day.
I think Sri Lankan. Hello?
Sri Lankans?
Yes, this is Lianagaya.
Yeah.
I came here about 6 weeks ago, and I have been watching this very carefully. And I am so happy that Sri Lankans are hell-bent on getting the vaccine. It's not a case of people not going for all this and that, but you must remember that we have two systems, the Western medicine and the Ayurvedic medicine in Sri Lanka. And some people believe in both. And even the Ayurvedic system, if, for that matter, even I use some of their products like steam inhalation and various other Ayurvedic preparations. And that seems to be working very well. And I think we are actually, as a doctor, I'm impressed by that because I myself was in MOH some time back in Phamukana and Kegol, and I know what the type of the things they do. That's not really recognized most of the time, but even the role of a PHI, Public Health Inspector, is great. They are working very hard, and we have to salute all of them. At the moment, we are quite happy that the government is doing a great job, and there are, of course, shortcomings and rivalry among the professionals also to show off their talents and this and that. But there is no private practice or anything involved in the management of these patients. And recently they started vaccinating the children, and the response to that is also very good. In fact, we thought children and the pregnant mothers, we had about 86 pregnant mothers dying of this pandemic. But on the whole, our statistics are quite good, and I am impressed by that. As a developing nation, we have done quite well. Okay.
I think
Thank you, Lianage, for that.
Arnian, we have to move on to Banda's comments on there's a booster dose thing you wanted to talk about.
All right. Okay, so let's move on. Thank you very, very much, Lawrence. Lawrence, do send me the slide. I have a few more comments and questions I'll ask you personally.
Please use me as a resource. I
just want to tell you one example just before I finish. I have been battling with some individuals, not at the level of thing. So there was one lady who came and said, she was a Hispanic lady, she belonged to a church, and she came and said, she had just come, and in the process of conversation, she said, I don't trust the government. I said, why don't you take the vaccine? She did not take the vaccine. She said, I don't trust the government. So I said, but you do trust the government. And she said, how? I don't trust the government. I don't believe anything they said. But you believed in the whole system of government. You drove, you came here, you had, all this kind of thing. But that didn't convince her any of those things. But finally she said, I'm going to church this weekend, and I have faith, nothing will happen. I'm a believer. So I told her, I'm also a believer. And then her face lightened up, they're just saying that. And then she started listening, and in fact, she did eventually go and get the vaccine. Only success I have out of the many people I've talked to. It's just a brick wall you hit with them. They say all kinds of stuff, but
find the common ground. Find the common ground.
Yeah. And then anyway, that Lawrence's strategy, but very good. Thank you, Lawrence. That was very, very nice.
I'll coordinate with Lawrence. Everyone who are attending today, it's some material that you can use. And I think we should have compiled some sort of CD or something like that. We will try and do that. Okay.
Banda, you're on, Banda.
Just one comment on what you said, Karunian.
That one gravy that was on. No, it's no gravy. The only other thing in it is hot sauce.
Okay, you can carry on.
Okay. I come across people like this who say that they have faith in God and all that. I'm a believer myself. But my reaction to that is you pray to God, but row to show.
Yeah.
Anyway, before I get on to boosters, I have a few sort of preliminary comments on the COVID situation, if I may, just to put it in perspective. There is no sign of a peak, as we find in most communicable disease outbreaks, there is a peak and it goes. We've had in some countries more than one peak, but there's another episode coming up very soon after that. So there are third and even fourth waves in some countries. Numbers are increasing in most countries, most of the big countries anyway, except countries like New Zealand. But even here we are having higher numbers now with the new variant. Seroprevalence studies have shown all together that only about 10% of the total population of the world has had COVID-19. Maybe another 5% have been exposed and have developed some immunity. So what I'm getting at is that there's a large reservoir of people who are still susceptible. So vaccines are very important in that sense. The case fatality rate and the hospitalization rate has decreased in many countries, even with the new Delta variant. And the age group for maximum incidence has shifted to younger populations overall. And the incidence is quite variable, with countries like New Zealand having very low numbers, whereas UK, USA, and Australia, even Australia, have larger numbers. China, the originator of this whole thing, has got a very low incidence rate at the moment. And interestingly, is something you may have heard of called the stringency index that has been put together. I can't remember who did this, but it's updated every week. And this is an index that looks at each country separately, looking at containment policies in each country, and they come up with a score. And I'll read you some of the figures here. The USA has a score of 66. UK is worse, it's got a score of 50. Sri Lanka is only 40. Australia is 74. And interestingly, India is also 74. New Zealand is 82. That's just in passing. I thought it's an interesting exercise they've done. Okay, I want to then move on to boosters. Talking about boosters, it's important to dwell briefly on terminology. There are three terms that you need to remember. One is an additional dose. The next one is what I'm going to talk about, the booster dose. And the third one is something called the variant booster dose. That's coming up. You are also got to remember that vaccine manufacturers will obviously push for boosters. There's one country that is leading the way in terms of giving boosters. And guess what? It's Israel. And they probably got a bit scared when they had quite a massive second or third wave. And they have recommended boosters for everybody there, everybody over 12 years. And anyone can get a booster. Already 2.8 million of the population have got the booster in Israel. And they have actually published these figures. It's an observational study because there was some concern about boosters giving what we refer to as myocarditis. This was brought up by the FDA in one of their recent reports. The CDC has challenged it, saying, no, it's not a big concern. In fact, there are more cases of myocarditis with COVID-19 itself rather than with the boosters. Anyway, the Israel data has, as I said, it's an observational study, has said that of the 2.8 million doses that have been given, there has been only one case of myocarditis. And the CDC has quoted this in their recommendation. The high risk groups and those over 65 years of age have just recently, meaning 2 days ago, been okayed by the FDA for getting the booster in the States, only for those who have got the Pfizer vaccine. And that's obviously starting, I think, next week, or maybe it's already started, as Karun.
I got mine, Banda.
It's already here.
Yeah.
So the CDC, they met last Thursday to review the data. The booster is also something that gives an added immunity, but the mechanism of the booster giving immunity is somewhat similar, but also it's focused mainly on the T cell response. And remember that with vaccines, there is something called immune memory that kicks in as well. So if there is a challenge, even if your immune system or if your second vaccine has been given a year ago, there is, as we have seen with the flu, there is a strong possibility that your immune system will react to a new challenge a year down the line, even without a booster. UK has offered boosters to all first wave priority groups from the 20th of September. Now, I don't know whether that's happening, but
yeah, it's already started in UK.
Started, right. But there has to be a 6-month gap between the second dose and the booster. I think that's also the situation in America. In USA, there has to be a 6-month gap. I say second dose, but there are a couple of vaccines that only require 1 dose. So that 6-month gap has to be from that single dose in that case. Now, I have said enough about the booster itself, but there is something that we need to realize, and that's the moral question regarding boosters. Is it correct to go ahead with boosters while the vast majority of the poorer countries have not even given 1 dose to their populations? Now, the WHO has very strongly called for a moratorium on booster doses, but they said, can those countries that have been thinking of booster doses please hold fire until the end of September, and now we are there. And even that's not enough. Bill Gates has advised that they should not be giving boosters until the end of this year at least, to give some time for the other countries to catch up with their first doses. So this is a big debate, but as I said earlier, Israel has just ignored all that and gone ahead. And only, just to put that into perspective, only 5.4% of the sub-Saharan African population has got the first dose of the vaccine. This is the September information. So only 5.4%. The UK has plans to donate 20 million vaccine doses to Africa in particular. The reality of all this is that responsive governments will always seek to protect their own citizens first. So currently the USA is giving the booster to those individuals 65 years or older and individuals over the age of 18 who are at high risk of getting severe COVID-19. I think that's about all I've got, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions you might have, or any comments. You might know much more than that about boosters.
So Banda, if I may just make a comment on the issue of vaccine, what we call vaccine equity. The other countries not being vaccinated, whereas the US is going ahead with the third dose and the booster dose. There has been a lot of comments by politicians who've been defensive on it, but at the same time solving it. And what they say is we can do both. Both Fauci in his testimony in the Senate and other officials, including Biden, said we can protect our population and also give it. And there is an element of truth in that. Biden has upped his vaccine donation to 500 million. So US is going to give 500 million doses of vaccine, donate. And he said, we are going to give it free of charge. We are not going to charge. We won't have any political deal for it. So that's a stand of the US. But yes, it is a moral and also a practical issue, because in this business, if you are not protected, I am not protected. So the notion that I can be protected and everyone else go to hell doesn't work. So that's one point. The other thing is, what is to me personally, having read a little bit, which I was really frustrated about, is the fact of patent protection. Patent protection is, I mean, the simplest way of distributing the vaccine is to license people in other countries to produce, giving the patent and the secrets of it. And there was a push by some people to do that. And I thought at one point Biden was almost going to do that. But if you let the African countries, for instance, if you set it up and allow those people to give them the information, that will be do more production, and you can substantially, because capacity of production is just not enough. And Pfizer and Moderna and 3 people doing it won't manage the 8 billion people in the world. So that is a issue that is, I think, immoral. I think knowledge is not someone's own private possession to be made money with. Certain knowledge, I think, has to be public. And after all, everyone contributes to that. So that's a comment on the vaccine. I don't know whether you have any comment on that.
Yeah, India has done that, haven't they? I think India manufactures its own vaccines, but
correct. Using AstraZeneca, but it's AstraZeneca that manufactures that. The point is,
they have got 2 different ones. One is by AstraZeneca. They are given a contract to the Indian manufacturer, but the Indians have their own one also.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but the problem is Indian government has said that no vaccine can leave the country just now. They want to protect their own population.
They're changing that. They're changing that in I think next month or so. They're allowing that. But the point I'm making is, what if Pfizer teaches someone in Nigeria how to make the vaccine and forgets the profits on the vaccine? They can keep patent for everything else. Because the patent is really comes out to, again, the point that Lawrence was making. It's all about money and people are dying.
But there's other factors involved, the raw material plus the equipment required. Because the Oxford one, though it's manufactured in UK, they are dependent on America for the filters. So they got stuck at some point because the filter was not being given.
Go ahead, Sarojini.
Just 2 things which are kind of very different. One is, I wonder if there's any issue about being sure of quality control once these patents are given out, and the original pharmaceutical companies were concerned about that. And the second question was more like, has Israel shared any of its vaccines with the Palestinian population?
No, they have not. That's one of the huge issues there. And also, they try to push some vaccine to the Palestinian Authority to refuse because it was outdated. So that iniquity is a big sore in my mind. They have not done that. And the point is, they are not protected either, but they bring walls. It's an apartheid state. They put walls and don't allow free movement of people. But that's a real sore in terms of the equity.
Arul, I have a question for you. Arul, as far as the reactogenicity is concerned, did you have more reactions to the third vaccine than the second versus the first?
Well, then I got my vaccine from Kaiser yesterday. I haven't had any reaction, and I didn't have much reaction for the first and the second either.
I guess it varies from person.
I'll let you know. Give me a call in 3 days' time if there's anything more. I'll let you know.
Is there a therapeutic medication that's coming up, the new one?
What's that?
For that, without the vaccine, isn't there the alternative therapeutic medication that is being produced now? Not
What is that?
ivermectin. Something starting with the Z something else. I don't know.
Yeah,
Pfizer is doing a trial on the treatment of COVID.
Yeah, therapeutics is pure.
Yeah.
Stanley, you haven't got your vaccine yet.
No, I got them. I didn't get my third one. I want to get it, but I had a cold and so on, so I didn't want to get the third one. I'm trying to get one this weekend.
Yeah. You can get it now.
Interestingly, the new variant is susceptible to the existing vaccine. So the booster that you got, Karunian, will work against the Delta. But but the problem is we might have another variant coming up, say next year. And that's why I mentioned something called the variant booster dose. That might be a requirement, but that might come later on.
And I have a question for you. What about this COVID vaccine becoming an annual thing, just like the flu vaccine?
Yes, I mean, what I just said relates to that as well, because with the flu, what happens is, although there is a new vaccine every year, that vaccine is still behind what's actually happening with the flu. There's tremendous amount of variations in the flu virus that occurs on a yearly basis, and we are always behind the ball game. The vaccine, and this is my area of research, so I know a bit about this, the vaccine does still give sufficient protection to make any infection milder. The death rates remain the same throughout. Every year is about, except the first year of COVID, we had very little flu, the death rates went down and everything was much better. But that's because of strict regulations for COVID.
Banda, I have a question for you, very important, because they plan to give us the flu vaccine in one arm and the booster vaccine in the other arm. Is that safe, in your opinion?
This is the question Shanti asked last time, if I remember right. Now, my original inclination was to say, keep at least 2 weeks between injections. But apparently, some research has been done and they found it's okay to get.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but Sam, my impression, I was also offered flu yesterday, I didn't take it. My impression is that as a public health policy, access to vaccine and getting people to a site to be vaccinated is a problem. So they make judgments as a public health policy, which is not always the same as individual policy.
I see.
So an individualized policy. So it's a bias. I have no data, and Banda may be quite right. There will be studies that say, but if you can have easy access to vaccines, as I do, as a doctor, I would suggest spread it out.
Have spread it out. Yeah, that's what I will do, I think.
And also the risk is low this year because everyone is masking, and last year there was no flu.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I want to say something about Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is also starting to give the booster dose to those over, I think, 80, starting from October. So that will be the 6 months after the second dose. Because we started vaccination only in March. So 6 months will be end of September. So we are also starting the booster dose.
And when are they starting, Ranjit?
I think October.
That's very soon. Yeah.
Ranjit, I had a question for you. I think although people want to take the vaccine and maybe now vaccines are being more available, is there a problem with like the distribution of the vaccine? Who is going to, how it's being distributed? My understanding anecdotally from speaking to some of my friends is that there seems to be a problem in that area.
No, I think they started in a few areas. Now even the 20 to 30 age group, they started only at the Eladej, Kurunegala and Anuradhapura. But that's for the start. But later they said they will give it at other places as well, and for them not to rush into these 3 sites because it will be available at their own hospital later on. Because they say that people over 20, 30, 90% have been fully vaccinated up to now.
Nilani?
Yes, another heartening thing is now public health PHIs, they are going to the homes of the disabled. So that's a improvement in the vaccination program. And the other thing to be proud of is that you won't be tolerated in a public place if you are not wearing the mask. For those of us who believe in wearing masks, I think Sri Lanka is an example to the rest of the world, because you will never be tolerated anywhere. It's a punishable offense still by the police. They can punish you and fine you. So I don't know whether that has also helped to lower the rates. And we have come off the traffic light system. And I'm delighted. I was very delighted to hear about it a few days ago, because we saved £2,285 for 10 days in a UK hotel. So that's an improvement. Otherwise, we wouldn't have, if our rates are not low, we wouldn't have come to the amber green spectrum. So I should have told this when I was asked about things in Sri Lanka. So we are in some ways endeavoring to lower the rates, the government and the medical staff, paramedics. Thank you.
Thank you, Banda.
Okay.
Thanks, Banda.
I think, Banda, you should, we are almost in the recommendation you made to, eliminate flu. If everyone lives for 2 weeks away from everyone else, COVID will die, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
You see, until what we call the reproductive number comes down below 1, we are not going to see the end of this COVID-19.
And what is it now?
It's about 2.5 overall.
And at the height?
Different in different countries, but it's quite high. Okay, I mean, compared to diseases like measles, it's pretty low. Measles is between 12 and 18, the reproductive number. And that's the other thing. Measles is coming up, at least for New Zealand and Australia. We are going into summer, and we are expecting measles to come back again. It's a real danger here. And influenza is the other one that we are expecting more this year. And we did get more during the winter compared to last year. But now winter is finishing, we are going into summer, so we won't get that. But influenza is one other disease that spreads through what they call aerosols, like COVID is now doing. And the only other disease which is of great importance was the pneumonic plague. We don't have that anymore, at least not in most countries. America has some plague still, but that's the bubonic variety. Pneumonic is very rare. But even the pneumonic plague had a pretty low reproductive number. It's just about 2. So this thing has to come below 1, and that's why we are not seeing the end of this.
Okay. On that very not so happy note, shall we stop? Banda and Lawrence, thank you. And Lawrence, thank you very much. That was a very, very informative talk. Yeah. We are looking for ideas for talks. I think we are trying to get Bonnie's daughter to give a talk. We prefer, family members of our batchmates. But if you have any ideas, good ideas, please communicate with Maruf and me and see. Maybe should we go off from medical topics to other topics, socially important topics? No.
Let him send in an email or a WhatsApp message what they would like to have a topic, and then we can choose from that. I suggest that the modern, the current views on anti-aging. Many people might be interested.
It's not a problem for us, Maru. We are not none of us.
What about your Bitcoin crash?
Anyone else who wants to do a
Maru,
and talk
Maru,
about
why
that?
the Bitcoin crashed or
I think
China has banned it? I thought you were into it.
I can talk about blockchain and life care. That's the other thing. But I think we should look into holistic way of life is a future of medicine. I think life care will come in place of healthcare, and I think we need to look into that. And although there was violent protest on various things, but I think we improve our way of life. Definitely, there is definitely a decrease of disease, and we are oriented towards reducing disease and not improving our life, and we have to do both. I think that's where it comes, and also the scientific evidence. Now, what happens during a immunity process, that immune development process in a vaccine, is that the second dose maintains immunity for about a year. In some cases it's forever, and that's, we need to study that, and we need to know when should we give the next dose. And there is a lot of argument going on because of the pandemic and the infodemic. So I think we need to look into that. I think very rationally. This is one of the points I like to make. The next meeting is going to be on the 30th. Remember the date, 30th of October, which is the Saturday, last Saturday. And I will ask Lena whether his daughter wants to talk about headaches.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
So we'll, I think Karnian, you and I will decide, and we'll see how the response are. People can.
We'll get something interesting going.
Yeah.
Now, the October 30th is Halloween Day, right?
Is it?
Yes, yes. Yeah,
so
it is.
So we should talk about ghosts and goblins and
Goblins.
elves.
Yeah.
Lawrence, do you know anything about ghosts?
Lawrence will come into play.
I can look it up and put something together. Do you want something informative on how to invoke the devil, or?
Yeah, something eerie.
Yes.
I'll think about it. Okay.
Good idea.
Scary.
I've sent you that YouTube
Therapeutic.
link.
The therapeutic effects of devil dancing.
Oh, I did some original research on that, but unfortunately I can't access it.
Anthropological study.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll send the YouTube link for the today's meeting so that you can follow it up. Sorry, it may be starting at, and I recorded the first part of it. I'll try to edit this and try to send it.
But Lawrence, if I may make a comment on your whole theme, you're brilliant. Don't get me wrong. But there is an assumption that you made, which many of our colleagues in this continent don't necessarily make it, that you were on the right side and the other guy was on the wrong side. The other guy should say you are on the wrong side.
Absolutely. This is a polemic. I agree. But that's the strategy that works. If you're not polemic, you don't get your message anymore. Giving balanced talks don't work in this environment. Yes, I agree with you. I didn't balance my talk, and I had no intention. I had no intention of doing that. Yeah.
And also the phenomenon that you are describing, you talked about Hitler and Trump was political and the anti-vaxxers. It's a universal phenomenon. It happens, you talked about Brexit. It happened all over the world at different times in history, and that's a political process of creating fear, creating doubt, often for benefit. In this instance, the motivation seems to be money in the capitalist society, and also fear, but political power. It's happened in Sri Lanka, it's happened in India, it's happened in Burma. It's a human phenomenon, in a sense.
Okay. I agree with you. I think that we are going through a fascist phase all over the world. I'll send you a book called Strong Men, which looks at Putin and Hungary and Trump and everybody. I'll send you a book. I totally agree with you, and it doesn't. It bodes well for us. I mean, I would vote Trump if I was in America. I think America would be more stable under Trump than under Biden.
Trump belongs in the jail and he's going there.
No. There's a system behind him. Hitler didn't win. It was the system behind him.
Yeah, no, there is a system behind him, but I think, I personally think it is insecurity. I think it's race-based in a large part. I mean, it's multifaceted. I think it's power and race-based. I think there is deep insecurity among the white population. Anyone with power who loses power gets insecure. And you can see that manifested more and more very overtly out in the politics. But anyway, that's US
100% agree with you. It is racial. It's a white minority.
The anxieties of the majority. Unfortunately, in the world, when you have a majority and you have power, you become anxious because you have something to lose.
Minority.
Arun, there is a saying, there is a talk that anything is possible in America. Is there a possibility of Trump coming back?
I doubt it very much, but yes, the point is every action has a counter reaction, and Trumpism brought the 2018 election. I'm skeptical it'll happen, but answer is it is not out of the realm of possibilities. What I am more worried about are the Trump imitators who've taken his fascist style, like Ron DeSantis. He's a dangerous guy because he's articulate and he can tell lies very well. And so there are politicians who are imitating as a means of getting power. And there are three particular ones, they are poor imitation. But anyway, that's American politics. But
he's going to be the nominee for Republicans.
Most likely, that's what they are saying. Yes, Saro.
Yeah, I was going to say whatever, the discussion, I agree with most of it, but whatever it is, as of this moment, the damage that has been done in the past 4 years is going to be generational. And that is one thing that we have to recognize. And that is a very, very scary thought for me. Whether Trump lives or dies, I think the Trumpism quote that he has brought forth and is now, manifesting in this country is not going to go away soon. And obviously, all of you can see that I'm very unbiased on this issue.
No, I agree and I worry. But then there are sparks of light like Gary Newsom in California. And the whole Californian politics is such a enlightened liberal politics. And if you recall, just going on to local politics, both our senators and Kamala Harris and all these people came as a result of the Prop 87 in California, which brought English only into the country, and that brought about the rise of the Hispanics. So there is reaction, counter-reaction in politics. So I agree with you, and I worry about it, the Trumpism and the hate and the disdain for the other has been put into the country. But at the same time, there are a lot of hopeful signs. And we'll see. I mean, it's very, very dynamic and moving parts. But I still feel hopeful, at least living in California. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think the hope is in the younger generation, if at all. So
yeah.
Okay.
On that very hopeful note, meet you next week, next month. Yeah, and we'll figure out something. Charles, we are still waiting for your stories of your paintings.
I have sent an email to Maruf what happened to my house,
Oh.
What happened?
We had a leak and the whole ceiling fell down. I sent you the video. You should be in here.
Oh
my! Oh, your paintings were spoiled.
No, not just painting there, because there is no paintings have been kept in another room, and there is no. I can't keep them in a proper order and record them.
Okay.
Maruf, you must be having that video with you.
Yeah, I'll do it because
But Konda, we'd love to see your.
Yeah, yes. I'll try and do it if things go right. The house is being repaired,
Okay.
But are you insured now? Insurance?
Yes, insurance is paying, but it will take time.
Yeah, right.
Okay. You know, I'm just curious. Before we finish, there are two icons here. I don't know who the human being behind that, Monica and N-Man M. I wonder who they are.
Monica is
Monica Lewinsky?
no. Somebody wanted to attend this meeting.
Oh, Benita.
She deals with
I forgot who is Monica? Who?
one of the friends, one of my friends.
Oh, so you're one of your
This
friends.
one-
And N-Man in M is who?
I don't know. No,
Why
I
don't
don't.
you? Hi, Monica. Yeah,
Hi.
welcome. Yeah, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. I was invited by Maruf and I was listening in. So thank you. It's quite interesting to hear what you guys have to say.
Okay. No, you're most welcome. Do join us. And
I will, most definitely. Most definitely. Thank you.
And man, I don't know.
Who is that?
Can
we unmask it?
maybe a QAnon.
He's muted, and at the moment,
Anyway, that's all right.
for him or her.
And man.
Anyway,
okay.
We will let you now, and we'll meet next week. And in the meantime, we will discuss between. We'll make sure that the current thing. I'll send you the YouTube link for the current meeting. I think it is really valuable. What Lawrence has made a lot of effort to do that. And then
thank you, Lawrence.
The next meeting.
Welcome.
Karnian, Don, and myself, and we can try to find out what is interesting.
We'll do something. I think we have to do something.
And
yeah.
Lawrence, prepare his the goblins. Hello.
Karnian, what about your son talking?
Well, I don't know whether that'll be relevant here. He's an immigration rights lawyer, but he will not talk on October. He's got he's November 8th, he's going to argue in the Supreme Court. So he's very busy with that. I don't think he's going to, I don't think it'll be relevant, but he says it's a, it's in a different world.
It could be medical, no, it could be.
You met him in that,
we have. I contact Lena, and he said his daughter will be.
We should stick to, he's too in a different world, immigrants' rights.
I can do a lecture on Hitchcock's Psycho, how it's all about Hitchcock's life.
That's a good one for Halloween.
Mother's Murder and Madness. Yes, that I'm happy to give. I've given it all over the world.
I love to see. I have Psycho.
Yes.
I saw the movie
Psycho.
in Sri Lanka. Yeah.
Yes, at the Liberty Cinema. Yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, okay, I can do that.
I watch it again many years afterwards to understand it. But
it's all about Hitchcock. It is his autobiography, as I will show you in the lecture.
We couldn't have a shower, behind a shower curtain for years after that.
Yes. Okay, I'll do that. I'll do Hitchcock's Psycho.
How many of you remember Hitchcock's Psycho?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, of course.
I saw that.
But his other thing, North by Northwest, and there are two other movies I saw. He's brilliant.
Vertigo, I think.
Huh?
Vertigo?
Vertigo, and North by Northwest.
Okay. I also do Vertigo. Yes, I've traveled the world lecturing on him. He's been my airplane ticket, and yes, okay, I'll do Psycho. I think it'll go down, and I'll show film clips, so you don't have to have seen the film.
Monica won't know Psycho, do you?
One Lawrence.
You're too young for that.
No. I will have to do my research, I think, before I come on.
Actually, a lot of people, that was the introduction to psychology.
Right.
Yeah. Because psychology was not a subject when we were growing up.
Yeah, no, definitely not even in my, well, obviously I'm a lot younger, but not as young as you perceive it to be, I suppose. I'm in my 50s, so we didn't do psychology either at school. And I'm from South Africa, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe she could do a presentation on apartheid.
Sorry?
Maybe you could give us a presentation on apartheid or
Yeah, sure.
famous
Let me join a few more times, and if everyone agrees, then yeah, we can. I went to school. My junior school was with Mahatma Gandhi's wife, Kasturba Gandhi's school. It was called Kasturba Gandhi. So that's where we went. And of course, the school that we went to was quite interesting because in South Africa, because of apartheid, where you grew up, it was like no running water, no electricity, all of that. So we used to walk quite a long distance and go to school there. But now I am sitting here in the light, in London. So from where I was years ago to where I am is, like most of you, I suppose, is quite a big and significant difference.
No,
what is your specialty? What is your discipline? Are you a doctor?
I am not a doctor. I am not a doctor. I am more in the banking and finance. I studied business management, did my degree in business management. And then I was working as an executive assistant in corporate banking and industry and finance. And then from there, when my job had come to an end about 4 or 5 years ago, I joined a company called health and nutrition company called Salad Master. I don't know if you guys are aware of the company. And we are it's a direct sales industry. And we really have now partnered with Diabetes UK and the International Federation of Diabetes to really show families how to steer away from lifestyle illnesses like diabetes, cancer, just by using the right cookware. And our cookware that we sell is titanium cookware. So there's no leakage of metals from the cookware into your food. And we do so much science behind it to show you how you can maximize nutrition in the everyday food that you and I eat, whether it's a curry or a biryani. We cook with no oil, with no water. But the whole purpose, especially now, is to show you how to maximize nutrition. And when you're talking from the anti-vaxxers on the holistic approach, not that we are holistic, but we angle more towards turning your kitchen, making it more of a natural medicine. Your food, making your food more of a natural medicine.
You can give us something like that.
We've got 2 topics right there.
Yeah, we can. We can arrange something. Yeah, definitely.
So who is your contact, Monica? Maruf knows you?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So you grew up in Durban?
I grew up in Durban. And then in 1998, I moved over to the UK.
Have you read Try the Beloved Country?
Oh, yes. That was that was like years ago. We did it at school. Yes.
Yeah, yes. I would highly recommend it to all before they come to
I read it when I was in Huddleston.
When we were like,
Huddleston,
we did it at school. Yeah.
Trevor Huddleston, I read it maybe in the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the 60s, goodness.
I was,
I have to say, when you guys say you're 80s and, you're 80s, I'm thinking, you guys look amazing. I don't know what keeps you guys so young, but a little bit of what you are doing, you can share it with us so we can be as good looking when we are 80 and 90. You guys look amazing for the age you profess to be.
Titanium cooking.
Without the titanium cookware, we are so like.
Yeah.
But thank you. I appreciate being on this call. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay then.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
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 Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks, Banda.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thanks, Lawrence. Karunian, Maruf, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karunian.
Be safe. Thanks.
As always. Bye, everyone.
Glory.